Hello everybody, I am back from PAX West. I had such a fun time, and as you guys know, I got to play Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac, and before we get into the video, I actually want to show you the goodies I got a little more up close, because I think someone actually asked to see the things more up close. So this is the Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac little Maruchan collab bag. The Maruchan is not in here, so don't expect that. But they also gave me this little card that contained information about the game, just, you know, standard stuff. And then I got the postcard that has the water world on it. I did not get to play it anymore because the game was actually more popular at the expo than I thought it was going to be, so I only got to play it once. But nonetheless, I enjoyed my time with Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac, but we actually also just got a new trailer for the game that details a lot of stuff, so I actually have 20 different things to go over today. 10 of those details are going to be from my personal experience playing the game at PAX, and then the other 10 are going to be little things that I noticed from the trailer. Of course, since I'm not, like, as familiar with this game as a lot of other people are, there's definitely going to be something that I missed, so if you notice anything that I didn't get to say, let me know down in the comments down below. I would really appreciate to hear what you have to say, and maybe I'll address them all in a future video. So if you enjoy this video, definitely make sure to drop a like and all of that jazz down below, and consider becoming a ZakPak member. It would truly mean a lot to me. And without any further ado, let's just get right on into all 20 points. This is going to be a long one. This first point is going to be both a correction as well as a new point, as a lot of you have pointed out in my last video that yes, the shrink pellet was originally in Ice River Run, and I'm just stupid, and well, I guess when I replayed the game, I didn't see it, so I didn't remember it, but I actually did still learn something from that, because let me tell you the full story. When I got to that section of the game, I had thought that this was new because I did not experience it in my stream and I just forgot that it existed. But I actually was with a Bandai Namco rep, and when I was playing, and you know, I basically said that I had streamed the game, that I had just, you know, played it, so it was pretty fresh in my memory, even though I stupidly just thought this was new. But I had asked the rep if there were more shrink pellets throughout the game, and if there were more things like that, you know, that weren't in the original game, and she said yes. But I also mentioned to her that I had thought that this was new, the shrink pellet to that maze, Galaxian maze, was new. And she also said yes to that too. So I don't know what's true, what's not here. I do think that she kind of did confirm that there probably will be more instances of the shrink pellet in the game, but I don't know. This is kind of a tactical blunder on my part, because I got nothing for that one. I mean, look, like, you can't remember everything, especially when you haven't played a game since your childhood, and you play it once, and you miss something, you think it's new. Either way, it's not new, though we did obviously see from it that Galaxians, when you collect them, don't automatically start a maze like they do in the original game. And when I played that level, even though I got the Galaxian and I beat the level, I did not play a maze. There was no maze at all in my playthrough. So I don't know if you need to meet a requirement to get the maze, if the maze just didn't show up in the demo, because this is obviously a very specific build for PAX, so yeah, I don't know. Okay, this is actually going to be my first complaint about the game, and something that I didn't really show off in my last video, because, I mean, it was just spur of the moment video, obviously. Now, the bouncing, the butt bouncing feels good. It feels like it should. It feels very solid. But there's one instance of it that I did not care for, and that is on the bounce pads. The bounce pads, using the butt bounce, it feels sluggish, it feels slow. And in Ice River Run, where you're just collecting a few fruits on those two bounce pads, that's not much of an issue. It's something where I'm like, okay, this feels kind of slow, this feels kind of sluggish. But I will say, where there's a whole world, the Bedoing Woods, that is chock full of these things. There's so many of these bounce pads throughout that level the fact that it feels kind of slow to use them, and those levels in the woods are a little on the longer side. There's a lot to explore. It's a little slower paced. I do think that having this slow momentum when you're using the bounce pads is going to affect how it feels to traverse that level and how long those levels take, and I don't know, that is kind of a worry. Like, it does seem like such a small thing, but butt bouncing, particularly on bouncy platforms, is a big part of the game. So if they kind of mess that up by messing with the speed, that's kind of a rough tweak, in my personal opinion. Ice River Run as a level has had quite a few tweaks made to it, one of which being that there are actually new platforms that contain crates and stuff that you can only reach using the Super Butt Bounce ability, which is exclusive to Re-Pac and was not in the original. So obviously, because of the fact that they're, bringing in new and, other moves that weren't originally in Pac-Man World 2, they're making tweaks to some of the level design to accommodate for those new moves, and these higher platforms are obviously an example of that. The Super Butt Bounce was something that, while playing the game, I actually didn't get a solid grasp of, mostly because I blazed through the controls like an idiot. But if you master those controls and reach those high platforms, I could see it being pretty cool and pretty interesting to get all the collectibles using it. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of the collectibles, every time you collect a fruit, the tallies appear for said fruit so that you know how many you've collected in the level and how many are left for you to collect. This is a much needed improvement, absolutely much needed improvement. And on top of that, with the collectibles, anytime you die, the collectibles that you'd already collected in the level stay collected. So you don't have to respawn and collect everything that you just got. It stays collected even after you die. So that is basically like what they did with Banjo-Kazooie in Rare Replay with the music notes. And that is a huge quality of life improvement that makes 100%ing this game that much easier. And I know some people might complain about that change, but look, right, difficulty is one of those things in games that I feel like should be natural in the platforming, in the actual collecting of the items, not in, you need to recollect things that you've already collected because you died. And especially in, like, the ice skating level, the avalanche level, the submarine levels, the swimming levels, all those levels should not be as hard as they are for the collectible objectives. So I think this is a great change personally. I don't know how everyone else will feel about it, but I personally think it's a good one. Okay, one of the biggest changes, in my personal opinion, is they completely reworked how it feels to walk on the ice in Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac. Now, in the original Pac-Man World 2, if you step on that ice, you got basically no control over movement. You're basically at the whim of where the game sends you. You can jump off and such, you can jump off to safety if you're near the edge, but you really don't have much control. Anytime you go on ice in Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac, it's basically just like going on the ice in an ice skating level, where you just gotta deal with some ice physics and you can slide around, and it just feels much different. Now, this is a tweak to the difficulty that I'm kind of 50-50 on. I mean, the ice was kind of nonsense in the original game, let's be real, but it did add a way to make you want to jump on the rock platforms and avoid the ice without having an instant death. So, it's a change that's gonna take a while for, I feel, people to really, like, get used to, because people are so used to avoiding the ice in Pac-Man World 2, so I'm interested to see how OG players are going to feel about actually being able to use the ice. But nonetheless, still a change that had to be pointed out. Okay, this is another change that I'm not as big of a fan of. Now, we all know the Rev Roll Rams, right? These enemies, they're rams that can Rev Roll at you, and you need to Rev Roll them back to stun them. Well, they actually changed them a little bit in Re-Pac. I actually don't think this was a thing in the original. If this was a thing in the original, then I guess there's another misinformation by ZakPak. My apologies, but I don't remember being able to kickflip them. You can kickflip them to stun them now in Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac, and I am like 99% certain that was not a thing in the original. I said that about the small pellet in Ice River Run, but I still think that's not a thing in the original game. I don't think it was. If it was, then completely forget this point. But the whole point of the Rev Roll Rams is kind of in the name. Like, the whole point of them is that they're an enemy that you can specifically target with the Rev Roll, and that's how they are defeated. So, kind of being like, oh, they can be defeated in multiple ways, kind of defeats their uniqueness. Because any enemy can probably be defeated by the kickflip, right? You know, any enemy can, you know, be killed that way. But the Rev Rolls being unique so that you can only use the Rev Roll on them made them a little more interesting. So them changing that is another change that I'm personally not too big of a fan of. But at the end of the day, the Rev Roll Rams are literally only in the Ice World and the final boss, from my recollection. So it's not like completely game changing, completely game breaking, but still a change I'm not a fan of. Now, they actually did change up Ice River Run as a level up a little bit, but there is a completely new segment. Well, they changed a segment. There's a segment in the original Re-Pac where you're going up a little rock mountain, you get a Power Pellet, you're eating the ghost on the way up, but it seems like they changed this segment to where you have to hit these two buttons, then a bunch of dots and a Power Pellet appears, then that's when you can get the Power Pellet to attack the ghosts. This isn't like the biggest groundbreaking change in the world, but this does show that they actually are changing some things on how certain levels work, and I'm sure there's other examples in the trailer, you know, that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but this is something I noticed to me. I was like, I knew that this 100% was not in the original game. So, like, this was a pretty big one in the fact that even though it is a small change, it can indicate other changes, as small as can be even, in other levels in the game. So, that's pretty cool in my opinion. I'm interested to see what more changes they add. Speaking of things that weren't in the original game, now there's like a whole rolling snowball thing where snowballs will start rolling at you at certain points of the level. And again, I am pretty sure that was not in the original game. Like, I remember having trouble with that level, but that was not one of the things I struggled with, because I feel like that would have just been overload. But because they're adding this, which actually did add a little bit of difficulty, it added something more for you to avoid. It seems like even if they do make some things easier, they are still adding more obstacles that you have to avoid to at least compensate for some of the easier changes that they made. So honestly, I like this change. You know, I mean, it's not like the biggest change in the world. Literally, it was just 2 snowball avalanche segments. Nothing too crazy, but pretty cool nonetheless. Going back to the collectibles for a second, they have bigger hitboxes, so they are easier to collect. No more jumping between 2 different rocks a bunch of times to try and get the Power Pellets like in the original game. Now it is so much easier to actually get everything all in one jump. And again, this is just something that I feel like people will be like, oh, you know, the original game, like, it did it better. Look, right, you guys know me, I like difficulty maintained, but again, like with the, you know, the recollecting of collectibles once you respawn, this is one of those things where it's just objectively improving it. Improving the hitboxes so that you can actually, you know, grab something, even if it's not literally directly hitting Pac-Man. If it's around him, if it's in his arm's reach, he will get it. So I think that is so much better than the original, and again, it'll make actually going through the game and collecting everything way less tedious. So I'm really interested to see how, you know, that'll affect other levels, especially like the ice skating level and the avalanche level, where it's all based on reaction timing and how you can get to a certain area quick enough to get a certain item. So I'm interested to see what they end up doing there. Okay, the last point for my personal playthrough of the game is kind of the obvious one. Pinky's boss fight. Pinky's boss fight is completely different here. Now, I actually didn't get too far into this, so I'm going to shout out Riders DX. I'm going to use some of his gameplay footage. In fact, his gameplay footage is probably throughout most of the video, since a lot of my recording was unusable because I got a faulty screen, naturally. But, nonetheless, so Pinky's boss fight starts off with an ice skating segment, very much akin to the ice skating level from the original, you know, game. You know, we kind of know what that segment's like. Pinky does some attacks throughout it, so it does obviously make it a little more difficult. She throws missiles at you that you have to avoid, all that jazz. But then we actually get into the boss fight phase of the boss fight, you guys know what I mean, where basically Pinky is a giant polar bear, and she's attacking you. She does certain things, like this tornado move that she does, like a spinning tornado move. But eventually, she'll start throwing projectiles at you. These green projectiles, which actually, that was a whole other point that I actually didn't have in my draft that I forgot to mention. There are new enemies that throw out these projectiles. They kick back at them, but we saw them in an older trailer, so they're nothing new. But that mechanic of kicking things back with the kickflip, or is it flip kick? I've been saying it because kickflip is a skateboarding thing. I'm gonna keep calling it kickflip, okay? That's gonna be my thing if I'm wrong. Either way, the kickflip, you can use that to kick those projectiles back at Pinky, and then that's going to damage her. Obviously, very much different from Pinky's original boss fight in the game. I don't even need to say what's different about it. You could just see the visual differences. But I do think, at least from looking at Ryder's footage of it all, that it does make the boss fight look easier. Like, it's definitely going to be easier than the original game, just simply because the original game had a lot of things with the physics and obviously the ice platforms, and the boss fight was just pretty hard in general. So I do feel like it is getting easier, but it's going to be different. It's going to be thematically and literally different than the original game. So we're going to have a trade-off of difficulty with the perk of getting actual new unique boss fights. So take it or leave it, I guess. So those are all the points from the actual gameplay demo that I got to experience. And now, keep in mind, obviously, I did not get to play, I don't know which level Riders played. It was from the first world, obviously, and I did not get to play Clyde's Killer Frog. But I will say that it looks really good from what I did see of what he played, because I haven't really looked through his footage that much yet, but it looks really cool. So now, let's get into actual details from the trailer. Okay, we get a little more of a look at the ocean world, the underwater world, and it looks completely different in the way that you play it. In the original game, it was linear. It was basically on rails for every single level. But here, it seems like you got free cam. You're able to openly explore the underwater segment, which was kind of theorized, but it's basically confirmed here with this shot where, you know, it's got his camera swiveling around Pac-Man as he's exploring underwater. I feel like it will change the pacing of those levels, but I feel like those levels are just being overhauled overall, just because, like, it kind of needs it, because those levels are literally just a straight line, so they're probably tweaking those levels even more, but they haven't showed us much of the underwater levels, so I can't really say too much more about it. The biggest addition is this thing called Fairy Mode. Fairy Mode is basically an easy mode that people who may be a little younger or having a little bit of difficulty, they can switch on, and basically a fairy kind of thing happens where certain things can be done to make the game easier. For example, blocks can fill in gaps between platforms to make those kinds of hard platforming segments easier, but then, kind of like with certain things that they've been doing in the later 3D Mario games, a fairy can appear in a section that you're having a hard time with, and it seems like if you just go to the fairy, it automatically skips the hard segment for you. I mean, look, like, usually easy modes, I'm like they're inoffensive, but like, you're literally skipping the game at that point. I mean, like, does only appear after it seems like you're having a really hard time with a segment, but to have you completely skip it is a bit extreme, but like, it's gonna be one of those things where obviously I don't have to deal with it. I'm not gonna have that mode on. So it's inoffensive at worst, right? Like, it's one of those things where people are gonna complain about it endlessly because it's like, oh, you're just making it a baby game. But like, you got probably the regular mode that doesn't even have that as an option, so I don't know. Like, it's a stupid thing, but like, nothing really to complain about. So this next point, you might have noticed when I mentioned Clyde's Killer Frog, they got the ghosts' names right! Oh my gosh, they actually changed the ghosts' names from the original game to actually make them correct, because if you don't know, in Pac-Man World 2, and I believe Pac-Man World 3 as well, they messed up the names of the ghosts. They got the, you know, they called it like Inky. You know, I think Inky was Clyde, and then Clyde was Inky. Like, they completely messed it up. So now they actually changed it to make it correct. And I think that is amazing. That's a very good change. No notes on that one. I mean, that's very self-explanatory. So we got a better look at the arcade in Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac, but we didn't really get that much information from it. We saw that the original Pac-Man is in it. We saw that you can replay the mazes from Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac in it. We saw the Gashapon machine, And we saw the Jukebox with the soundtrack, which it does seem to be remixed throughout the whole entire game, which I really like. I wonder if they're going to have an original music mode. But we didn't really get to see much of the other arcade games. It seems like they're kind of keeping stuff secret. I don't know why, really. I'm assuming they might have changed out some of the games, and obviously they just kept in the original Pac-Man for the trailer because it's the original Pac-Man. Of course it's going to be there. But yeah, I'm assuming there's more to see with the arcade, because obviously the mazes from the actual game was in the original game. The Jukebox was in the original game. So everything that we've seen besides the Gashapon machine was in the original game. So I don't really know where the other arcade machines are, but if you noticed any of the other ones in other trailers or anything, let me know down in the comments down below. Speaking of the Gashapon figures, we actually get to see a few more of them in action, and one of the most interesting things in my opinion is that we actually have figures based on the original Pac-Man World Re-Pac, or I guess the original Pac-Man World with Anubis. So really interesting that they're including content from both the original game, you know, original Pac-Man World and Pac-Man World 2. It definitely seems like a love letter to both of these original Pac-Man World games, and I'm wondering if they might have Easter eggs to Pac-Man World 3 in there. That would be really interesting to see. This point's kind of self-explanatory, but the time trials mode returns. We see it return where you can collect clocks to save you some time. You can speed run through the levels. There are certain objectives you can complete for silver, bronze, and gold medals. I said that in the wrong order, but that doesn't matter. Basically, it's returning from the original game. No more notes there. The new thing with Time Trials mode, though, is that there's going to be online leaderboards so that you can see where your time ranks among people from around the world. I think that's a cute little addition. It makes it so that you really want to go for super high score, so even if you get the gold medal, you know, the best you can do for the game standards, you could still go for getting better times compared to everyone else around the world, so I think that's a super cool addition. So this next point actually isn't something that they really showed big in the game trailer, but it is there. The infamous slide in the volcano. We all know that slide. That is awful. I mean, like, it's not like the worst thing in the world. It's not the hardest segment in the world, but oh my god, it could be frustrating. They actually did show a little bit of it in the kind of like grid layout where you can see a bit of it, and it does seem like, at least from what I can tell, the slide is a little bit wider, and also the camera shows you a little bit more to make the slide a little easier, but I like that they did not dumb the slide down. There's nothing on the sides that will keep you in. It's still very much the same slide, just made a little easier with some quality of life improvements, and I'm all here for it. Slide looks great. I hated it in the original game. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but, you know, like, whatever. But it is cool to see that they didn't change it too much. We also get to see a little snippet of the Pac-Marine boss fight level. And this level looks honestly pretty unchanged from the original. Now, we only get to see a couple little snippets of it, so it's not like we can get a real scope for any actual changes they made to the level. But mechanically, it actually looks very similar to the original Pac-Man World 2, because if you remember with Re-Pac, they actually changed a lot of the boss fights to be a little more modernized, I guess. And I personally thought that this was a boss fight that they were actually going to completely change fundamentally, but it looks like they're being pretty faithful and authentic to it, you know, despite some of the changes in the camera angles, and it looks like anything that has like dots or anything are in clear bubbles as opposed to the mines. Again, we only got a little bit of footage, but knowing that it actually is pretty authentic, I did not hate this level as much as like a lot of other people did, as frustrating as it was. So I'm actually kind of glad that it doesn't seem like they've changed it too much. And the last point I have for you guys today is that Pac-Land is actually really different in terms of how it's structured with the world map, and I think we kind of knew this, but we get to see the map in full. We see all of the regions on Pac Island, which is shaped like Pac-Man, which I love. Then you have the buoys that looks like the dots in Pac-Man, which I don't know if that was intentional, but that's really cool. And then obviously you have Ghost Island off screen to the right-hand side there, which is obviously the last world of the game. I actually like the restructuring of this map because obviously, you know, in the original game it was linear, it was a straight line around the world. But here, they all branch off from Pac Village, so they're not all that far from Pac Village, making it so you don't have to run through all the worlds that you did before to get to a future world. They're all easily branched off from the hub. And it just gives the world a little more of a visual charm, given that, like I said, the island is literally Pac-Man. I think that's pretty cool, personally. So there you have it, guys. Those are 20 new details that we've learned about Pac-Man World 2 from my time playing it, as well as the new trailer. I know that was a lot of information, and if you stuck around through all of it, thank you guys. You guys have been so supportive through Pac-Man World 2, even though, like, I'm not as much of an expert as a lot of people are. I am passionate about it because it is a game that I did play growing up, and I'm very happy to see it back. So I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and if you enjoyed, definitely make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, all of that stuff down below. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of whenever I upload videos, and consider checking out the new merch store or becoming a ZakPak member. That all supports the channel and helps get me to make more content for you guys. And until next time, you guys, I'll see you all in the next video.